Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Rob, and today we are going to be talking about list building tips and tricks. So, I have had a number of games now. I've just had my fourth game as of yesterday. Lee and a few friends of mine came down to visit, and yeah, we had an awesome time. And then combined with the games in Australia, combined with lots of other people's feedback about the game as well. So, what I wanted to do today is just go through kind of 10 top tips and tricks, things that I think you need to consider when list building. And what I'm going to do is show you a list as well and go through the list and why I think that it covers all the bases about what we're talking about today. Hopefully you guys find it useful, and hopefully it gives you a few ideas as well. I'm not necessarily saying that you need to do every single one of these 10 things, but if you could maybe include like 5 or something like that, I think that it would really support you in terms of your list building and help you in most circumstances when fighting in the Age of Darkness. In terms of the list, so this is the list that I'm going to go through at the end of the show today, and I'll kind of talk about the reason why I've built it this way. There's actually no Praetor in this list, but it is bang on 3,000 points, and is, I think, quite a cool list that covers lots of the bases that I think that we'll all need to consider for third edition. But let's get into it. So my first piece of advice is bring something with Officer of the Line 2. I've not seen anything yet with Officer of the Line 3 or 4. But I think that Centurions and Magos for Mechanicum, they are just really important because they unlock 2 slots. And I suspect most people will just end up bringing at least one of these in terms of their list building, unless they're for some reason building an incredibly elite list. But even when I was fighting and list building with Custodian Guard, I was finding that a Shield Captain, which has Officer of the Line 2, I took 2 shield captains. Like, they're quite meaty and amazing at close combat, but to unlock those auxiliary detachments, I think that they are a necessary tax, and I think that they can be buffed in certain ways that actually makes them really useful on the tabletop as well. And I think the other thing I would say is with the Centurion is if you pop him in the prime slot, it means that number one, you can buff him up, so you can give him Paragon of Battle, which is what I'm going to do for my list when I show you guys a little bit later. So you can make him a bit of a close combat beast. So he's not just a superfluous kind of like Centurion that is essentially a tax for your army. You can actually make him a bit of a close combat monster. But also being able to open those slots and having more auxiliary detachments means that you're not always relying on logistical advantage. Now, the list that I've taken today, I've used one logistical advantage, but I think, that's a good rule, which is that actually you could be buffing up these units with combat vets, etc., and you don't necessarily need to be taking logistical advantage all the time. So you can, increase the strength of your army overall, I think, in particular units, by bringing a Centurion or bringing a couple of Centurions to your list. On to the next one is Nuncios. Now, Nuncios, I think most people have cottoned onto this one. They are utterly essential to keeping your guys in the fight. So they're a 10-point upgrade. Most units can take them. There are of course exceptions like Terminator squads and command squads and veteran Vanguard squads. We're looking at that today. They can't take them, but they are definitely essential for your tactical squads and particularly for your line squads to keep them in the fight. What it allows you to do is remove a single status in the start phase, so it's basically an out of sequence kind of removal of a single tactical status, which is really, really important. The fact that it's out of time order, out of sequence order, and allows you to do it right at the start of your turn. Amazing, like, well worth it. And then it also allows you to use a command's call or leadership once per start phase as well. So if you've got a Centurion with leadership 9 on the table, you can use that Centurion's leadership 9 in order to get you back in the fight, which I think is really, really nice. And I think that people will find that these are just like a go-to piece of war gear option. If you can take it, people will take it. My next piece of advice is do not underestimate combat resolution stacking. Like, I think I dismissed the Word Bearers Legion rule out of hand, just by the fact that they get +1 to combat res. In every game that I've had so far, I've been in a drawn combat and somebody else has actually won that combat because they had a Vexilla. So actually, it wasn't a drawn combat. They ended up winning because of the combat resolution. So do not underestimate it. I think Vexillas have a place. I think Nuncios are obviously good, but actually, for where you get a combat where your combat resolution points are the same, just or in terms of models lost are the same. Just having that Vexilla, having that company standard, having that Legion standard, and don't forget that they also stack on top of one another as well. So if you have like a Vexilla in there and a Legion standard in there, that's going to give you +3 combat resolution points, and then if you're a word bearer, that will give you +4 combat resolution points. So if you're you're tied combat, you're actually in that scenario, your word bearers are going to be quite comprehensively winning that combat and forcing you to take a leadership check. So don't underestimate it, and I'm going to link that back to the list a little bit later. But I have been caught out by this in basically every single one of my games so far. I think I've ended up losing combat because somebody has taken Vexillas or something like that, and it's caught me out. So beware that one, but I think don't underestimate it, because I think a few people are overlooking the Vexilla. Don't. My next one is bring precision. So, and this links back to those Nuncios and Vexillas and apothecaries as well. I think, rightly or wrongly, that there's still a little bit too much precision in the game, but the fact is that you're going to need to bring precision in order to leverage tactical statuses and get rid of people's Nuncio Voxes. The easiest way to bring those is through Seekers and their Kraken Bolters. They've got 3 ways that they can use their Kraken Bolters, and quite frightening ways to be able to use them, but they obviously give precision shot 4-up, but also recons with Nemesis bolt rifles as well offer precision shots. And I think, as I say, you're really going to want to get rid of Nuncios, apothecaries, and even Vexillas very early on in the game. So use that infiltrate, use that long range on the Nemesis bolt rifles, get rid of particularly those Nuncios, especially if you're wanting to make and leverage your weapons that give your opponent tactical statuses. Next one, bring weapons that inflict tactical statuses. So we're going to link this back to the list a little bit later, but actually, if you are causing your opponent to be slowed down, if you're causing them to be suppressed, stunned, or even if you're bringing flamers to cause panic and routed, I think that it's going to give your opponent a little bit of a headache in order, because they're having to deal with a number of checks, and they will fail those checks across 4 turns. They will fail some of those checks, and they will have fallen for your dastardly plan. So make sure that you do bring some weapons that inflict tactical statuses. I think some people will say, well, your opponent's just better off dead than tactical status. I think to some extent that's true. You might want to just bring devastating weapons and devastating firepower, but I think it's an interesting aspect of the game. You can leverage it well if you're clever about it, and the list that I've got uses a number of weapons that kind of either force tactical status on a certain dice roll, or will cause an opponent to have to check against their call or their leadership. So make sure you do. Also, the other one, and came up in the games yesterday, fear Phosphex. That panic 3 is very, very frightening. So fear that. If there's a Leviathan with some Phosphex coming towards you, be frightened of it. Next one is to bring line. Like, it sounds obvious, but I think you need to bring plentiful line as well. You need 3 or 4 line units. I think that you can get away with bringing 3 line units if you've got some Vanguard in your list. If you've got no Vanguard whatsoever, you really need to be thinking about 4+ line units in order to, in a 2,500 point plus game. I think you can't get away with that. I think the temptation is just to bring like 2 tac squads, because they're just they're not very fun to paint tac squads necessarily, and they're always a little bit of a chore. But I think you're going to need more than that. Even if you have 2 large attack squads and then 2 small attack squads, or 2 big breacher squads and 2 tac squads, something like that, you definitely will need it. And I think the important thing is to remember, it wins you the game. That line will win you the game. Sure, there's examples that break that rule. Custodian Guard, for example, A Justarian heavy Sons of Horus list will break that example. However, the majority of the time, 90% of the time, it is line that will win you the game and getting a jump on those objectives early on. So make sure you bring plenty of it. And don't forget to protect your line units by bringing nuncios. Now, you can protect them by bringing them in vehicles if you want to. That's not a bad shout. Rhinos are way more durable than they were last edition and in first edition, but nuncios are almost an essential piece of war gear in a tactical squad, just in case that they gain a tactical status and you want to remove it right at the start of your turn. Next up, a Master of Signals. So if you're taking dedicated close combat unit without Vanguard, consider a Master of Signals. Now, I think this is particularly pertinent for the Loyalists, less so for the Traitors because they have an awful lot of Vanguard. But for Loyalists, and certainly when I've been Ultramarine list building, I've really kind of been scratching my head going, how do I introduce Vanguard into my list? Well, Master of Signals is actually able to do that for you. They can make a unit either line or Vanguard, and that can switch per turn. So I might have a command squad, for example, on the first turn I go beep, 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 beep. That's going to be Vanguard for the first turn because I know that I'm about to attack a tactical squad and get it off and clear it off an objective. But there might be times where that command squad needs to hunker down later on in the game on an objective, and you can give it then line one. So I think that this is it's a completely different way that we understand how the Master of Signals kind of used to function. Sure, it gives +1 to reserve rolls, but this aspect of it is completely different. No more buffing ballistic skill, no more night vision. But I think that this will provide a lot of flexibility, and I think that this will provide an awful lot of flexibility, particularly for the Loyalists as well. So make sure you use it at the right times to maximize the unit scoring potential. And I think that using a Master of Signals and getting the most out of it will really separate the good players from the best players. Leveraging that, I think, is going to be a really critical element of fighting, particularly, as I say, if you're a Loyalist. Next one, bring tanks. And if you're bringing tanks, bring lots of Battlesmith. Okay, I am absolutely loving tanks at the moment. Like, I took a Kratos in my games in Australia. But Battlesmith was essential in both of those games. And if you are bringing tanks and you're not bringing Battlesmith, I think something has gone wrong. Now, easily and accessible ways to bring Battlesmith, you can bring Tech Marines, Tech Priests, which are dirt cheap, and they feel like the troop slots for the Allied detachment. So might be worth having a look at that one. And I can't see any rule that says that a Tech Priest can't fix like a friendly Legion Astartes tank. Like, I've not been able to find a rule. So if you guys have found that rule, let me know. Pravians are away and Forge Lords are the way as well. All of them have Battlesmith. Some of them have servo arms, so they can give essentially +1 to that Battlesmith. And it's all done on an intelligence chest as well. And you can buy a cyber familiar to give you +2 to that intelligence check, which makes it way more likely. And I think is almost an auto include with anything that can take it and has Battlesmith. If you're taking a tank heavy list, make sure that you take Battlesmith, as I say, because you're going to want to be able to fix it. Don't forget, Battlesmith works within a 6-inch bubble. You don't need to be next to the thing to be able to fix it. And it can happen at any point in the movement phase. So it can start at the start of the movement phase or the end of the movement phase. So if it means you need to hop around with your Tech Marine, you do have the flexibility to do that and then kind of like fix something, as well as restoring wounds, but also removing tactical statuses. And I think it's the tactical status element that is going to hamper a lot of people's tanks. Our friend Paul yesterday, who's been on the show many a time, he took a Whirlwind Scorpius, and it was just tactical status throughout the game, and he couldn't really do anything with it because he didn't bring any Battlesmith. So something to consider. And if I'm taking a Kratos or some tanks, I will be bringing some Battlesmith. You need an answer to AV-14. Like, I have seen the number of lists that I've seen recently that basically have 2 Land Raiders and a Spartan in it. Like, I feel like over the next 6 months, that is going to be lots of people's lists. That's going to be the backbone of a lot of people's lists. So if you don't have an answer to AV-14, you're going to be really snookered. Really, my thoughts on this have changed over time. I had initially thought that Strength 9 las cannons were going to be the premium anti armor choice. I think actually it's going to be Strength 10 or higher. I think that fishing for those fives and sixes for that armor bane and that penetrating hit, I don't think is quite enough. And it's the same way I feel about Melter. Melter is devastating, but it's not consistent because you're fishing for sixes in order to deal with AV14. Sure, if you got a six, like it's gonna take a lot of hull points off that tank. However, it's not consistent and it's not reliable. So I think strength 10 is going to be really important. So have a look at the last weaponry. Have a look at demolishers because they're strength 12. Have a look at typhons, laser rapiers, and the magna laser destroyer on the Vindicator chassis is also one to consider, and I'm going to talk about those a little bit later as well. Don't forget, if you don't or can't find room for all that kind of strength 10 las weaponry, there's always an answer which you can go to grav, and you can cause shock pins using grav weaponry. And that will at least slow that AV14 down. It might not stop it in its tracks. Well, it will stop it in its tracks, but it might not destroy it, but it will stop it in its tracks and it will slow it down. And it might just give you a little bit of breathing room. And on the whole, is much cheaper than just kind of like mass las weaponry. So it might be that you might not destroy the AV14, but if you can pin it and slow it down, that might be the way to go. But of course, if your opponent's got Battlesmith, they'll be able to fix it. So bit of a trade-off there, but I have included both of those things in my list that I'm going to show you a little bit later. So Vanguard can be important. So I played with Custodes yesterday, and that was a bit of a lesson in Vanguard, and that actually you can win with just Vanguard. Don't forget, Custodes still score, but they're limited on how many points that they can score. They can only ever score 1 point, even if the objective says 3. If they're standing on it, they can only score 1. That's the thing about Vanguard, but they can score an awful lot of points if they're knocking things off objectives. But it's I think, again, this is one of those things that will separate good players from the best players. Knowing when to strike with Vanguard and setting up those Vanguard units, I think is going to be really critical for leveraging maximum, armies that have maximum Vanguard in. You need to understand and know when to use it best. And I'm sure we'll cover that in Tacticas over on the Patreon. Attack the right targets at the right time. Tac squads are squishy and easy units to be able to get those Vanguard points off. But just beware of people moving away from objectives. I think this is the other important thing as well. Just beware of them. Tactical units moving off of objectives with a reaction. I think that those really good players will always dance around the edge of objectives in order, especially when playing people who've got a lot of Vanguard, and then will just move off of the objective as you come towards them and come closer towards them. And it will minimize the amount of Vanguard points that you're going to be able to have. But I think it is important. And I think that it builds up a melange of a list, which is that, combined arms and having lots of little things that do things on your list is going to be important. So including at least one unit with Vanguard is going to be, I think, important. And sacrificing one line unit for a Vanguard unit might be worth doing as well. If you're talking about Vanguard 3, man alive, if it's got Vanguard 3 and you can wipe a tactical squad off of a objective, that's going to be really nice to gain that. And don't forget as well, as I say, I think you should include some Vanguard in your list, but I think that Vanguard is really important for a counterpunch. Less so if you've got first turn, but if you've got second turn, I think Vanguard really comes into its own. I think your opponent's going to be forced to push up, try and capture as many objectives as possible in that first turn to try and get ahead of you. But that just, you've essentially laid that trap for them, which is then you can go in and strike with your Spartans, your AV14, get out and then attack them. And I think that Vanguard is actually, it really comes into its own if you are going second. And I think that was the case when I was playing Custodes yesterday. I think I went second both times, and it really came into its own because both my opponents were forced to jump on the objectives, but that just sort of laid it open for me to be able to attack them as soon as possible. So bear in mind all of those kind of 10 tips and tricks for list building. Let's have a look at the list that I've created. So as I say, it's 300 points on the nose, but I have not included a Praetor in this list. So I'm going to be lacking, lightness is I'm going to be lacking one reaction in comparison to my opponent. This is also just a generic Legion list. Like, this is not Legion specific. You could take this with any Legion and then combine it with your Legion rule and maybe some Legion war gear options, and I think that it will do pretty well. Like, I think that actually this is just a jack of all trades list and might be inspiration for a kind of like a starting point for some people. So we're going to start off with the champion with a jump pack. He comes in at 135 points. He's got his Paragon Blade and then his pistol. Nothing too exciting about that. I did notice Paragon Blades are actually quite hard to take nowadays. Of course, unless you're Custodian Guard. But I couldn't see an option for, say, just a Praetor to take Paragon Blade, although I may have missed that. So let me know in the comments below. Now, he is doing something really interesting. He's unlocking the Veteran Card Rate Auxiliary Detachment, and that is something specific to the champion. So he can unlock a normal Auxiliary Detachment, or if you go to the front of the Liber books, he can actually unlock a Veteran Cadre, which is really nice. So with that, he's going to be taking some elites, which is 5 Vanguard veterans with power axes and shields, and that comes in at 180 points. And the champion is going to be rocking around with those Vanguard vets, and their sole purpose is just to bully tactical marines and line units off of objectives. Like, that is the number one thing that they are there to do. Vanguard vets have Vanguard 3. So I'm hoping to be able to collect as many Vanguard points with that little unit as possible. Now, that Vanguard Vets units with power axes, shields, and a champion is not going to be useful against somebody's 10-man squad of Justarian. So use it wisely. It's got a very, very specific purpose. I can always deep strike this in, but don't forget deep strike is a bit riskier now because you can't assault from deep strike. So I think that I'll just hop around or behind buildings as long as there's not light terrain. With that, I can unlock a heavy transport with the Veteran Cadre. It's brilliant, the Veteran Cadre. If you've not considered it before, make sure you check it out. And I'm going to be taking a Spartan with searchlights, and that comes in at 405 points. And then he can also, within that Veteran Cadre, unlock a command squad. So I'm going to be taking a 6-man Cataphractii command squad with Power Fists, Chain Fists, and then a Legion banner. And that links to what we were saying before. Do not underestimate, those things like Vexillas and banners, because they could be important, particularly for drawn combats or helping you win combats. And particularly if you're winning combats and your Master of Signals gives your Cataphractii command squad Vanguard 1, for example. And that leads me nicely to my next command slot, which is a Master of Signals. Now, he can be put in, and I think it's likely I'm going to probably put him safe in the back with my heavy support squad, because he's going to be unlocking some Legion support for me. And within that Legion support, I'm taking, in that auxiliary attachment, I'm taking 2 Grav Rapiers for 120 points. So the Grav Rapiers are there essentially to shock pin vehicles. Like, that is really their purpose. Now, they will be good anti-infantry killer, but I'm really taking it for that tactical status for that shock pin, and I'm hoping to slow down that AB14. So just adding 2 of those, I think, is pretty nice. They're relatively cheap, and hopefully they'll go kind of a little bit unnoticed because there are other threats kind of bearing down on my opponent. He's also going to be unlocking through the Legion support auxiliary detachment an 8-man heavy support squad, and that's going to be an autocannon squad. And they're going to have a Nuncio Vox, and they're going to be 250 points. Autocannons, I think they're going to be really, obviously, I think they're going to be really popular, and it's because of their high rate of fire combined with the damage too. Those 2 things, I think, are going to make the autocannon a really popular choice for anti-infantry. If you just think, it's going to be wounding Terminators on a 2-up, and then if that Terminator fails one of its saves, it just is going to obliterate that Terminator. That's why I think autocannons are going to be some of the premium weaponry this edition. So 250 points, an 8-man heavy sports squad, and they're rocking some autocannons. And again, you can choose where the Master of Signal goes. Grav Rapiers, heavy sports squads, just bed them down in it, and hopefully they won't be caught by somebody else's Seeker squad. And then this is the important bit. So this is the Centurion. I want to talk about this in a little bit of detail. So you've probably worked out that my 6-man Cataphractii command squad is actually going to go in the Spartan. That makes a lot of sense. Slow Terminator squad. that packs a little bit of a punch, of course, is going to go in the Spartan. But I'm actually going to put my Centurion in with that Cataphracti command squad. Now, the Cataphracti are heavy, so in order to gain all the benefits of being heavy, and none of the drawbacks of having like a mixed unit, I'm actually going to give my Centurion a boarding shield. Now, it won't improve his invuln. His invuln is just a 5-up, but it does make him heavy, which is an important thing because I do want a +1 to those cool checks. So it is a quite slow unit. They're going to be a little bit slowed down in that setup move, but the boarding shield is important, I think, in order to leverage the most out of heavy. He's going to be rocking a Thunder Hammer. I still think a very, very good weapon. It's a really good weapon. I think it's still really, really got a place. I'm really interested in taking 10-man Vanguard vets units with Thunder Hammers, but I'll talk about that at another point. And he's also going to be taking a Vexilla as well. Now, you can start to see what I'm doing here with our tips and tricks, which is combining our Vexillas with our Legion banners. So the Vexilla obviously gives +1 to combat res, and then the Legion banner from the Cataphractic command squads gives +2. So actually, even if I'm drawing a combat, I'm going to be winning by 3 there. And I'm also, because my Centurion is going in a prime slot, I'm going to be unlocking Paragon of Battle for him. So he's going to have +1 weapon skill, +1 attacks as well. And I think there was a third buff within that. I think it's +1 ballistic skill. So he is going to be a little bit of a close combat monster, and I guess like a cheaper version of a Praetor. That's what I'm going for here. You know, weapon skill 6, kind of Centurion. But really, the reason why I'm taking the Centurion, again, looking back to our first tip and trick, is I want to unlock two auxiliary attachments. The first one is I'm going to be unlocking the armored support, and I'm going to be taking three tanks here. So I'm going to be taking the Sakaran Arcus with Laz. The shock suppressed is really important. Like just with the neutron flux kind of missiles that it's got, the fact that it has shock suppressed and just any 5s or 6s to hit on a tank will just suppress it is really, really nice. Well worth it. I've used it before. It's absolutely great. And then it's strength 8 AP2 damage 2 missiles. It's got 5 of those. They're just great for like killing elites. Like they're absolutely brilliant. Like I really rate the Sakaran Arcus now. I think it was a little bit expensive last edition, but I think it's probably, for what it does, is priced appropriately. And the fact you get all the missile options gives it a lot of tactical flexibility. I'm going to take a laser vindicator. So that's got the strength 10 Magna laser array, I think it's called. And again, linking back to what we were saying about strength 10, it's important to have strength 10 to deal with some AV14 in there. And then I've also added just a normal vindicator. And again, this links back to our tactical statuses, which is that actually causes stun. I think it's got stun 1, I want to say. But again, correct me in the comments down below. The rule book is around me somewhere. But that's going to cause stun if somebody fails a check. But also on top of that, it's actually strength 12. So it's actually going to be pretty good against vehicles. So definitely worth looking into that one if you haven't considered that one yet. It's actually in a good place. It is a small blast, of course, but it's in a pretty good place. Yeah, with the changes to blast templates now, you roll to hit, and then if you don't hit, it then scatters. Like you're going to hit a spot. If you plonk it right in the middle of a Spartan, it's going to hit a Spartan. I'm not too worried about that scattering off a Spartan now. But my Centurion is also going to unlock a Tech Marine Covenant. So you may have seen this at the start of the Liber book. And this opens 6 support slots, but they can only take a Tech Marine Covenant in. So I've decided to go for 2 Tech Marines or Tech Marine, I've said there, Tech Marines with Cyber Familiars. And I think a little pricey if I'm perfectly honest with you. I think that you might be better looking into that allied detachment if Tech Priests can use their Battlesmith on Legion vehicles. Again, I've not been able to find anything that says that they can't. But the Tech Marine is going to be really useful. He's no slouch in close combat. He's got a power axe. He's got a 2-up armor save. Cyber Familiar in there, and hopefully he's going to be helping me fix tanks. That Sakaran Arcus, I'll plonk him behind. Maybe put him in some tactical squads as well. Just give that tactical squad a little bit of a close combat heft. And I think that's quite a nice thing to do. And that tactical squad can either hop on objectives or support the tanks and just be near them. Again, a battlesmith bubble of 6 inches or 12 inches, the bubble in its entirety is actually quite fast. So just taking 2 tech marines, I think, future proofs you against vehicles getting tactical statuses and helping to fix vehicles and their hull points as well. And then going and hopping back to the primary detachment now. I'm taking 3 tactical squads. They're all the same. They're 15-man tac squads, and they've all got Nuncio Voxes. They've got no close combat weapons. I think having played now, I think upgrading a tactical sergeant with a if you're not going to upgrade it via a prime slot, upgrading a tactical sergeant that has only 1 attack with a 15-point thunderhammer or something like that, I'm not convinced is worth it. I think actually you'd probably just be better with the bolt gun. And just sticking to that and spending that points on either another guy in the tactical squad or elsewhere on nuncios in other parts and other units. But each of those units have a nuncio vox in them. That's why they're 160 points. So 15 guys and then another 10 points for the nuncio voxes there. And then I'm going to put one of my tactical squads in a prime slot, and they're going to open up a logistical advantage. Now, I didn't really have any. I don't really want to use too much logistical advantage in my list. I'm not going to go absolutely nuts with it. But I did think it was appropriate here, linking back to our tips and tricks and unlocking a 10-man Seeker squad with a Nuncio Vox, I thought was important. And again, this links back to our tips and tricks, which is saying, you are going to encounter people who've watched this episode, who know that Nuncio Voxes are important, that know that Tech Marines are going to be important, that know that Vexillas, all those combat resolutions point stack. And actually, you want to deal with that. I think that I would be less keen to use a Seeker squad to try and eliminate my opponent's kind of like command structure within the list, and I'd be more keen just to go after the really gribbly little guys that have been upgraded with Nuncio Voxes. Like that's what I would use a Seeker squad for. So so from the logistical advantage there, we've got a 10-man Seeker squad, and we've not upgraded them, just using the Kraken botters. The Kraken botters are excellent. And don't forget, these I think have got infiltrate nice. So it does give you a little bit of flexibility about where you place them, whether you place them in cover, high up, close to your opponent, far away from your opponent, whatever. Okay, it gives you a bit of flexibility. And that comes in at exactly 3,000 points. And I think that list kind of covers a lot of the bases that we've talked about today. I think it covers every single base that we talked about. And actually, it's just a good starting point. If you're struggling for list writing and list building at the moment, you could use this as a basis and then just adjust according to your legion, like your army, right? You might get, I don't want to take a Cataphractic command squad. I want to take a something different. I want to take a Fire Drake squad or something like that, right? Or I want to take a Justarin squad, or I want to get rid of the Vanguard vets because they're elites and put my Justarin squad in there. So you can just adjust this list if you want to, but I think it's 3,000 points. It gives you a little bit of everything. Tactical statuses, durability, close combat. It gives you some tanks. It allows you to fix those tanks. It offers a little bit of shock in there. A range of different tactical statuses. We've got stun in there. We've got pinning in there, and I think we've got suppressed in there from the Sakara Naga. So this is almost like a jack of all trades, a master of none. But I'm hoping that you guys have got some usefulness out of this episode today. And with that, let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you think that I'm way off the mark, let me know. If you think actually this is a good basis for a discussion, let me know. If you think actually this is going to be a really good idea to help you list build, then let me know as well. All feedback is welcome. List building, at the moment is quite laborious. I don't find it a chore, but it is laborious. And I think that list there took me about like 30 minutes going backwards and forwards with all the books. But hopefully it was an enjoyable episode for you guys, and you got something valuable out of it. As I always say, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to support us on Patreon as well. We say it all the time, but it does help us to continue to help the channel to grow, but also to help create more content. We're just about to open our Heresy Hammer HQ studio as well. So all the support that you guys can give us would be welcome. We'll tell you more information about the studio in the future, in the coming months. Don't forget that these episodes can be found on Spotify. Not immediately. We often upload them to YouTube first. and then a few days later we'll upload them to Spotify. If you've got any questions, please email us. If you've got any list suggestions, please email us with those as well, and then we'll cover them in our next community show. Everything will go kind of back to normal in September, back to our normal kind of like routine. We've kind of been pumping out the content recently, and if you want to join us for our community chat, where we have lots of different chats, and that's including list building, painting, general chats, yada yada yada, loads of them. You can sign up free to that by going to our link tree in our Instagram bio, and get signed up to that, and join us and be part of the conversation. As for that though, I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, and we shall see you on the next one. Take care, guys. See you soon.